Hello, welcome to CitizenAY, the platform where we speak truth to power. We are just trying to bring as much information to you as possible. In the background, you're hearing the song How Long? How long will not go to suffer? You'll be hearing it. What we're trying to do is to play that song every single day until their fraudulent election day. And speaking of elections, the man that is about to talk now is none other than Mahmood Yakubu, the Inec chairman, the man who is going to rig the elections anyway. And when we tell you that Inec is not independent, and we mean that. And you can already hear the fact that they are coming to the UK to seek validation. The only validation that should be of importance to Inec should be the people's validation. And if the people are telling the government that INEC is fraudulent, the constitution is fraudulent, and the government is refusing, instead they are trying to use other people to try and make us accept what is unacceptable. That is clearest evidence that we are not a democracy. But I want you to listen to what he has to say anyway. Let's have a listen. Meanwhile, you will hear the song in the background. How long? Have a listen. Let's going for about an hour or so. We'll play it, and I might come in and out, but nonetheless, I'll be here. Okay, thank you. Let's listen on. How long will not go to suffer? How long? It's time. We need a referendum and self-determination. We need a referendum to decide if we want to be in Nigeria, and if we are going to go and give the opportunity via that referendum to decide if we're staying in Nigeria or going a separate way. Myself personally, I want to go a separate way. The fact of the matter is that constitution is a fraud and it needs to be ripped up. Listen up. Here we go. The volume will come up over time in a bit. It's slightly lower. It will be loud in a minute, just wait.
Nigerian elections, about the processes, and so it's a great opportunity for those here in the room, but also those of you who are live streaming.
So let's have a listen to what he's saying here. Let's have a listen.
Just ask questions, so we have an hour to do that. Just a reminder that this meeting is part of a series. So we have had presidential candidates speaking last year in December. We had Bola Tinubu, we had Peter Obi yesterday, and I do encourage you to either on the virtual platforms watch tomorrow or come here and see in person Mr. Kwankwaso, who's also the presidential candidate for the NNPP. So elections and their conduct is something that we take very seriously at Chatham House, and chair of electoral commissions from Nigeria are not strangers. We did have Professor Jega here in 2015, for example, speaking on a similar topic. He was also nominated by the members of Chatham House for the Chatham House Prize. In the end, he didn't succeed to win the prize, but he came very close. And I think that is a signal, an indication of the seriousness that we regard INEC chairs here at Chatham House. So with no more ado, Professor Yakubu, I'm going to invite you to come to the podium here to give your presentation, and then we can have a conversation. So again, thank you everybody for attending today, and please do send in your questions if you're on the Zoom platform. We'd be very grateful to see them, and I think on this occasion there'll be plenty of time for a Q&A. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Alex Vines, and I want to thank Chatham House for the invitation to speak today on this illustrious platform, which has over the years welcomed exceptional intellectuals, celebrated public servants, and renowned statesmen. I have been informed that I am only the second chairman of Nigeria's Electoral Commission to speak at Chatham House after Professor Adairu Jega in 2015. I appreciate this profoundly. I am all the more excited because I've been invited to speak on Nigeria's 2023 general elections with particular emphasis on preparations and priorities for electoral integrity and inclusion. It is exactly 38 days to the next general election in Nigeria, which I have both the privilege and challenge of leading its proper delivery. General elections with particular emphasis on extensive international attention and concern, not only because of the sheer size of the deployment, but also because of the importance of Nigeria in Africa, and most particularly in the West Africa sub-region. Understandably, therefore, there are enormous expectations both within Nigeria and internationally about the conduct and management of the 2023 general election. The expectations place a great responsibility on the election management body, the Independent National Electoral Commission. We are not taking these responsibilities lightly. We appreciate that there are challenges and concerns, but we also realize that there is enormous goodwill and support, both in Nigeria and beyond. Consequently, we believe that by forthrightly sharing our experiences and discussing the challenges openly, we can surmount the challenges and ensure that our elections in Nigeria continue to get better. May I, on this note, once again reiterate our position that the Commission is not contemplating, let alone planning, to postpone the 2023 general election. We are going ahead to conduct the election as scheduled. But by way of preliminary remarks, I wish to remind you about three important facts about Nigeria's election, which I believe many of you are aware of. Number one, given the geographical expanse of the country, the number of registered voters, electoral constituencies, and polling units, conducting general election in Nigeria is a huge undertaking. The delimitation details are simply staggering. 93.4 million registered voters expected to elect their representatives in 1,491 constituencies spread across 176,846 polling units. Based on the figures we compiled from the websites of various electoral commissions and interior ministries in West Africa, Nigeria's current voter population is 16.7 million, higher than the 76.7 million registered voters in all the other countries put together, and there are 14 other countries in the sub-region. This means that a general election in Nigeria is like conducting elections in the whole of West Africa and beyond. Secondly, Nigeria's election is not a one-day activity. There will be national elections followed by state elections. National elections, that is presidential election and elections to the two houses of assembly, the Senate and the House of Representatives, will hold on Saturday, 25th February 2023. On that day, voters will elect the president and 469 legislators made up of 109 senators and 360 members of the House of Representatives. State elections will hold 2 weeks later on Saturday, 11th March 2023, to elect 28 out of 36 state governors and 993 members of state houses of assembly. I say 28 governors because in 8 states the elections are conducted off-cycle because of previous litigations. So we have already conducted those elections, the last being Ekiti and Osun in June and July last year. Thirdly, The 2023 general election will be the 7th consecutive general election in Nigeria since the restoration of democracy in 1999. And this is the longest period of electoral democracy in the country's history. Previous efforts, as you very well know, were repeatedly truncated by military interventions. In approaching the subject matter assigned to me by Chatham House, my lecture is divided into 3 broad areas. The first one is lessons from the 2019 general election. The second, preparations for the 2023 general election, looking at early planning, the electoral legal framework, voter registration and permanent voters cards, election technology, expansion of voter access to polling units, inclusivity, recruitment and training of election staff, interagency collaboration and support, and finally, electoral operations and logistics. Number 3, issues and challenges such as the prevailing insecurity and its impact on the election generally, attacks on Inec facilities nationwide, violence during electioneering campaign, vote buying, electoral litigation and adjudication, prosecution of electoral offenses, and for many in this hall, the nagging question of diaspora voting. Now, these wide-ranging issues cannot be covered in detail, if at all, within the 20 minutes, or if Alex is flexible, 20 long minutes, which may be 25 or 30, that I have for my presentation. I will therefore highlight the more critical issues so that we can have more time for discussion. Actually, that's the part I like best, the discussion. I have prepared a 23-page lecture, a copy of which will be given to the organizers and will also be uploaded to the Inec website immediately after the presentation and discussion. Lessons from the 2019 general election. Preparations for the 2023 general election are largely being concluded and preliminary deployments already underway. Indeed, our preparations began quite early. One important lesson from 2019 is that early preparations for election provide opportunities for adequate planning, acquisition, and testing of systems. A second lesson from the 2019 election is that early choice of election technology management tools, especially the main election technology, is very critical for success. Their proper pilot testing and deployment are exceedingly important for a successful election. For election technology, early decision is central to maintaining its integrity, popularizing it among voters, and addressing any challenges that could arise. We know that political actors often try to undermine the process by attacking the technology, casting doubts on its suitability, bypassing its use, or indeed seeking to undermine its security. This informed the early choice of a new voter accreditation technology using an electronic device called the bimodal voter accreditation system. We have tested it in several by-elections and off-cycle governorship elections. In addition, the decision to make polling unit election results available for public viewing, which has always been a major demand by citizens and election observers, falls into this early choice of election technology. The Inec Results Viewing Portal, the IREV, is a dedicated web portal for the public view of polling unit results as soon as they are finalized on election day. This has been employed in several elections conducted by the Commission in the past few years. In particular, the uploading of polling unit results to the IREV portal has been deployed in 105 constituencies where the Commission conducted off-season elections since August 2020. The result can still be viewed on the portal, making the IREV an invaluable repository of election results in Nigeria. It is actually our biggest archive for election results. and citizens and anybody who registers on the portal can still view the results for all the 105 constituencies. And I kept asking those who care to approach the commission. The work we have been doing is to upload the scanned images of polling unit results, and the same hard copy is given to party agents at polling units on election day. And I've consistently asked candidates and politicians to compare the results on the IRF portal with the hard copies brought by their polling agents from the polling units. And I asked them if there were discrepancies. It's 99.99% accurate, and the results are still there on the IRF portal. Now, a further lesson from the 2019 general election, which is helping us immensely in our preparations for 2023, is that an early finalization of changes to the Electoral Act, the principal legal basis for elections, is critical to proper organization of elections. In the build-up to the 2019 general election, there was an unending back and forth between the executive and legislative arms of government on the Electoral Act. And in the end, the amendment was stalled. And one consequence of this was that Inec could not conclude work on the regulations and guidelines for the election, which are meant to drive from and be consistent with the Electoral Act as early as we intended. Since the Commission has no say as such in the passing of the Act, it had to wait for a final document to emerge from
Just a subtle break in the transmission. It will proceed. Bear with us. Thank you. It will proceed. Just bear with us. Thank you.
the process, which ultimately never ultimately became law. It is noteworthy that this time around, the Electoral Act 2022 was passed in good time, and it has addressed some of the issues and challenges we encountered in 2019. The last lesson from the 2019 general election is funding, an early release of funds to the Commission, which are also very important to well-organized elections. And partly because of delays in finalizing the electoral legal framework for the 2019 general election, finalizing the budget for the election, and arranging a good schedule for fund releases to the Commission. All this was rather tardy and challenging to the Commission. And to add to the pressure on the Commission, there were over 14 million more voters to cater for in 2019 compared to 2015. It required painstaking and prolonged engagements with the Commission, and both the executive within the Commission and between the executive and the legislative arms of government for us to make some headway. And given that practically all activities for the elections depended on funds, printing of ballot papers, the result sheets, to hiring of election staff and transport providers, the Commission could not meet many of its targets in preparing for the 2019 general elections. So, learning from this experience, what have we been doing to make sure that 2023 is better than 2019? The first point to make is election planning. And learning from the 2019 general election, a great deal of forward planning and engagements have been undertaken, and many aspects of our preparations attest to that. First, we concluded the new 4-year strategic plan and strategic program of action, as well as the 2023 election project plan, over 18 months prior to the date set for the election. So these planning tools were ready 18 months ahead of the elections, which gave us a very good start. Then the Electoral Act. Elections are essentially anchored in law, and Now, like the case with the 2019 general election, new electoral act was signed into law on Friday, 25th February 2022, exactly 1 year ahead of the general election, giving time for both the Commission and all stakeholders to fully acquaint themselves with the challenges in their responsibilities and functions. As an affirmation of our readiness for the general election, the Commission released the timetable and schedule of activities the following day after the law was assented to. It went into force well after it was assented to by the President. The following day, on Saturday, 26 February 2022, the Commission released the timetable and schedule of activities. It contains 14 activities to be implemented from the publication of notice of call to election day. And I'm happy to say that the Commission has accomplished so far 11 out of the 14 activities for the election, and all of them on schedule. So there are only 3 activities outstanding. The new law contains some very important changes that hold the potentials for improving the quality of Nigeria's election. I have identified 10 most important provisions in the new law, but time will not permit me to go through all the 10. But they are all listed in the lecture, which, as I said, will be made available immediately after today's session. Related to the Electoral Act are the regulations and guidelines. The Commission has powers under the law to come up with regulations and guidelines to govern the conduct of election, drawing from the provisions of the Constitution and the Electoral Act. The Constitution cannot be expected to say everything. So members of the National Assembly, drawing from their powers under the Constitution, make subsidiary legislation. And then in turn, even members of the National Assembly, through subsidiary legislation, cannot say everything about the conduct of elections. And in turn, they donated part of the powers to the Commission to make regulations and guidelines. Together, the 3 instruments are called the Electoral Legal Framework. So very quickly, for want of time, what have we been doing about perhaps the most important foundation for democratic elections? The registration of voters. You can't have a credible elections without credible register of voters. That is critical. Now, this has been a major component of our preparations for the election. The law requires the Commission to conduct voter registration on a continuous basis. However, the law also provides dates for suspension of the process to prepare for general election. Consequently, continuous voter registration, as we call it in Nigeria, or the CVR, was suspended on the 31st of July 2022 to resume after the general election. And I'm sure you must have heard about the provision of the law as to whether it is 90 days or not later than 90 days. I'll leave it at that. If we have time, we can discuss it. There are some words used by the legal draftsman that give the Commission flexibility. Sometimes it's not later than, sometimes it's not earlier than, sometimes it's on a particular date. But if there is time, we can take this up during discussion. The CVR, I said, was suspended on the 31st of July, and in 1 year, from the 21st of June to the 31st of July, 12.2 million new voters were registered, out of which 9.5 million were validated after a thorough cleaning up of the data. We believe that enthusiasm, especially among young people, was partly responsible for this surge, but they are also motivated, we believe, by the innovation of online pre-registration introduced by the Commission. For the first time, we introduced the online pre-registration of voters, where citizens can comment the process online, but they have to go to the physical or designated registration centers to conclude the process. This enabled intended registrants to commence the process online from a dedicated portal, book an appointment on the same portal, and finally appear in person at an Inec office to have their biometrics taken. The cleanup of the register was painstakingly conducted by the Commission because the automated biometric identification system, the ABIS, before now the Commission used the AFIS, the fingerprint identification system. By this time around we use the ABIS, meaning both fingerprint and facial. And that is what we're also using to accredit voters on election day. And all these innovations were all the work of Inec's own engineers in-house in the Commission. The machines may have been fabricated outside the country, but the design of the machines were done by our own engineers in-house. In fact, one of them said that they are going to introduce a new biometric using body odor. I said, please, not yet. Let's make haste slowly. But when he explained it to me, it sounded logical. He said, don't laugh, Chairman, because I said body odor is also biometric. He said, how does your dog recognize you? It's from your body odor. And that's why if another person walks to the house, it barks. When you move into the house, it wags its tail because it recognizes your body odor. I said, but for elections, let's wait, not now. So we use the ABIS to clean up the register. But also, that is something that is perhaps peculiarly Nigerian. Who owns the register of voters? It's the people of Nigeria. The law says that when we finish registering new voters, we should add them to the existing register of voters, meaning that the 9.5 million that we clean up after the last CVR should be added to the 84 million registered voters for the 2019 general election, and subjected to scrutiny, claims and objections by Nigerians. And this requires the printing of hard copies of the register and displaying same in 8,809 wards and 774 local government areas. For that alone, we printed over 9 million pages for that exercise. So at community level, citizens can look at the register, tell us, are there ineligible persons on the register? Persons who by virtue of age are not supposed to be on the register, or citizenship, or the deceased, or multiple registrants? Again, because of the Electoral Act 2022, we need something that doesn't avail. We published the entire national register of voters on our website, and citizens had access to them, and you probably saw on the social media how they're picking up pictures of people all over and saying all manner of things on the social media. Now, the purpose of claims and objections is that people whose names have been misspelled or their personal details, or they have realized that there are some people that shouldn't be on the register, it was their responsibility to inform the Commission. And there is a procedure for making these complaints. At the end of the exercise, over 53,000 names were annulled from the register as a result, essentially, of citizens' action. I want to say this, that the National Register of Voters in Nigeria is the largest database of citizens in Africa. And we believe that the core of it is solid. But like every database, it's not perfect. And we'll continue to work to improve on that database. One of the complaints we received arising from the claims and objections said that there were underage voters in 15 states, and they submitted an 138-page document And personally, I took time to study the document, line by line, blow by blow. They identified 21,000 plus in eligible registrants in the 15 states. And I asked them, is that all you have identified? He said, that's all that they have identified. But in the 15 states, there are 37 million registered voters. So the 21,000, in terms of percentage, comes to 0.06% of 37 million, meaning that 99.94% of the register is solid.
If you believe that, you believe anything, or if you believe that, you believe anything.
Engage citizens on this, and as I said, once the backbone of the register is solid, then all we need to do is to continuously update. Some of you may be aware, as Nigerians, that with every general election until 2010, voters were asked to register fresh. But with the introduction of the biometric register in 2010-2011, we are only asking those who have come of age or did not register before to register. Not every Nigerian is called out to register. But as you can see, the number has been increasing from about 70 million in 2015 to 84 million in 2019 to 93 million for 2023. And who knows what the register of voters will be next election in 2027. So Nigerian law requires that voters must possess the voters card, what we call the permanent voters cards, or the PVCs, to be able to vote. And following the cleaning up of the register, the cards for both new and old voters, the law said that even if your name is misspelled during the CVR, go and get a new card. Inec will correct the misspelling and print a new card for you. So we have reprinted those PVCs and we have made them available for collection. When we started making the cards available for collection, we operated at the level of the local government area 774. We later devolved the collection to 8,809 wards. Only last week we extended the collection at ward level, and overall also extended the collection until the 29th of this month. However, the process is still ongoing and is going to go on, and we're encouraged by the kind of numbers we are seeing. The figures I received yesterday from Lagos shows that over 600,000 cards have been collected in the last 1 month alone in Lagos. Lagos has the highest number of registered voters, but at the same time also the largest number of uncollected cards in the country. But probably now, with what is happening, the largest number of collected cards in the country. And we have warned our staff, because I've had so many complaints in the field, bottlenecks having to do with sundry allegations of extortion to our own staff. We'll investigate and deal with it. Or inducement by some people, registered voters, induce the officials. Please, I don't want to waste my time hanging around. Take this. Here is my temporary voter's card. Here is my telephone number. As soon as my card is available, call me. And this one is also illegal, and the commission is prepared to deal with it. And then we also had complaints about discriminatory issuance of PVCs in some locations. And these are allegations that we're also going to deal with. In fact, we have already issued a circular to all our state offices. The resident electoral commissioners should keep their eyes on these processes to ensure that every registered voter gets his or her card, but there will be no collection by proxy. That's why we have moved away from collection, from distribution to collection. If we were to distribute, all the cards will go. In 1 week, all the cards will leave INEC office, but they may end up in our hands. But we are putting the onus on the registered voter to collect his or her card. So the emphasis is not on distribution of cards, but on collection of cards. Next, I'll go to what many of you are interested in, I'm sure, hearing from the Commission, and that is on election technology. Now, in order to avoid the usual challenges with the application of new technologies, the Commission introduced and tested our innovations for election early enough. There are 3 critical components. The first one is the Inec voter enrollment device. It's called the IVED, for improved registration of voters. It's the same beavers, but when we register voters, there are peripherals we add. We add the fingerprint scanner and thermal printer. So that we can register, take the fingerprints, and also print the temporary card. Then we have the INEC bimodal voter accreditation system for both voter accreditation and transmission of results for collation, and then the IREV, the INEC result viewing portal, to offer public access so that citizens can view results at polling units as the processes conclude. IVED has been deployed in the recent CBR, and as I said, we have 93.4 million registered voters, of which 37 million, and that's 39.5%, are young people, young Nigerians between the ages of 18 and 34. And then they are closely followed by 33.4 million, or 35.75% middle-aged voters between the ages of 35 and 49. Put together, these 2 categories constitute 75.39% of registered voters in Nigeria. So actually the 2023 election is the election of the young people, because they have the numbers. Even the majority of the PVCs collected actually are collected by young people. So out of the 93.4 million, 70.4 million registered voters are between the ages of 18 and 49. Already the PVCs, as I said, are available and are being collected, and the collection of the cards will end on the 29th of January. We have to end it because before the election, we'll publish the number of PVCs collected on polling unit by polling unit basis nationwide. So I'll skip the other thing about electoral operations and logistics, but let me go to inclusivity before I round up inclusivity and diaspora voting. Our commission remains fully committed to making Nigerian elections inclusive. Inclusive elections constitute an essential part of democracy, and that's the reason why in our commission we regularly speak of our commitment to free, fair, credible, transparent, verifiable, and inclusive elections. And over the years, we have worked with various stakeholders to increase the participation of young people and women.
Let me just say that again, just to be clear, Nigerian elections, the only one that has been free and fair remains the June 12th that they stole away from Babiola. That has been the only true free and fair elections. Everything else they snatched and they stolen. It's neither been free nor fair. And as we speak, we in diaspora, we cannot vote. And foreigners are allowed to come into the army. And once they are recruited into the army, that means that they can vote in elections because they are seen as citizens. Only citizens should be in the army of a nation. When the government is partnering foreigners and bringing them into the army, it means that they become citizens. So this election is going to be neither free nor fair. That is the fact. You can quote me on that.
Participation in the process, it may not necessarily be participation in elective offices. Under our constitution, no one can contest election unless and until he or she is sponsored by a political party. And we have been engaging with the political parties to see what we can do together in that respect. And then the work of the Not Too Young Children movement did a lot in reducing the age requirement for contesting some electoral positions, which actually underscores the Commission's youth policy. In addition, the Commission has a gender policy introduced way back in 2012 to guide or provide a fairer working environment for women in the Commission and in the electoral process, and we remain committed to these policies. But in addition to that, we have been engaging with the disability community nationwide. Only last week, we met with Inclusive Friends and the Albino Foundation, and we're going to be providing a lot of assistive devices, both as a requirement of the law and as a practice. The albinos complained that we should help them to be able to see the logos of the political parties on the ballot papers better. And so we introduced magnifying glasses. For the blind that could read Braille, we introduced Braille jacket. And then for the deaf, they said they could see and they didn't need those assistive devices. They asked what could we give them. So in discussion with them, we came to the conclusion that we should provide posters for them that will also help them, and we'll continue to do more in that respect. In fact, we are working together to launch a data dashboard that captures all registered voters with disability in all polling units nationwide, disaggregated by type of disability. By the time you get the paper, you will see the distribution of voters in Nigeria by disability, including the percentages by type of disability. Diaspora voting. Our quest for a fully inclusive electoral process will not be complete as long as Nigerians who are living outside the country are unable to vote. And voting by millions of Nigerians living outside the country remains a recurrent issue for the Commission. Nigeria is said to have one of the largest diaspora communities in the world. Our people are everywhere. However, the Commission only...
Yes, we are everywhere because you and the Inec that is not independent, and the corrupt Nigerian government has forced us to leave our own nation, to leave the land of milk and honey. So don't try and say, oh, they are everywhere, as though we willingly went. No, we didn't. We were forced by bad governance, corruption, fraud, election rigging, killings of people. And now there's no safety or no security by Fulani governance. So let's get the facts right. Let's listen more anyway.
Acts in accordance with the electoral legal framework, which is the main reason why we cannot implement diaspora voting for now, much as we would like to do so. Both the
Unasi Ojuru, we cannot take out electoral voting. So the people in the US, they have 2 heads, Abi. The people in UK, they have 2 heads, Abi. And you like to say you're a democracy, but when it comes to the responsibilities of democracy in ensuring that the people the citizens can vote wherever they are in the world, like you said, Oh, we cannot do that just yet. Can you see that is all trickery? Can you all see? I hope you're all seeing this. I hope you're all seeing it. Nigeria is a fraud. We must dismantle it. The constitution is a fraud. Promulgation decree number 24 of 1999, and that is what's being used to rule us. It's time for us to go for. We demand a referendum, and we can decide for ourselves to go for self-determination in each of our groups: Yorubas, Biafrans, Middle Beltans, Hausas, because this is fraud. This is excuses. This is all is sham. And the platform provided, of course, is by they're hurrying to the people, the very people that colonized and destroyed the kingdoms. Utter nonsense. Listen on.
1999 Constitution and the 2022 Electoral Act provide that voters can only be registered and vote within the country. For instance, Section 77, subsection 2 of the Constitution says that every citizen of Nigeria who has attained the age of 18 years residing in Nigeria at the time of the registration of voters for purposes of elections to a legislative house shall be entitled to be registered as a voter for that election. And there are other sections of the Constitution that tie the eligibility to register and vote in executive elections, presidential and governorship, to the requirements of residency, as in the case of legislative elections. The Commission hopes that these legal obstacles will be cleared at some point to enable Nigerians in the diaspora to vote. We have actually completed the policy as far as the Commission is concerned, and we identified two categories of Nigerians living outside the country. We have the OCV, the out-of-country voting, mainly by service personnel and other Nigerians engaged in, say, foreign service, and those who are engaged in technical manpower. There's assistance organized by the Nigerian government for other countries, particularly in our sub-region. For now, they don't vote. But the other leg of it is for Nigerians permanently resident outside Nigeria. That is the diaspora voting. And we worked with Nigerians in diaspora organizations in the UK, in the United States, and we're even happy that some amendments were submitted, constitutional amendment to the National Assembly, but eventually they didn't sell through in terms of the propositions forwarded to the state assemblies for concurrence before our constitution is amended. Should I talk about attacks on other facilities? I don't think this presentation will be conclusive without that. In 4 years, 50 facilities of the Commission were attacked in various parts of the country. Mainly in the form of arson and vandalization. Buildings, election materials, and vehicles were destroyed, and sometimes these attacks even targeted staff of the Commission. During the continuous voter registration, some staff of the Commission in Imo State were attacked, resulting in injuries and death. The implication of the attacks is that we have to rebuild facilities and replace materials. And the Commission and the security agencies have increased their presence in some of these locations. The last attack actually happened on Sunday last week, but because of the cooperation between the military and the Electoral Commission, we were able to respond, and the damage was limited to just a section of the building in a local government office. The Commission has repeatedly called for concerted efforts to control and check these attacks. And in December last year, the National Assembly held a public hearing on these attacks, and we hope that authorities have these attacks under control and the response by the security agencies more coordinated. But in spite of these attacks, we'll rebuild facilities, we'll replace damaged or lost items. The election will continue. Finally, we have promised Nigerians and friends of Nigeria that the 2022 general election will be free, fair, credible, and inclusive. And we have left no stone unturned in preparing for it, despite several challenges. But all elections, especially those involving the type of extensive national deployment like we do in Nigeria, will naturally come with challenges. We have worked closely with stakeholders and development partners to confront these challenges, and we are satisfied with our preparations so far. Our Commission does not take the pledge that we have repeatedly made to Nigerians lightly. We are leaving no stone unturned in our preparations, and our commitment remains only to Nigerians and not to any political party or any candidate. Our commitment and loyalty is to Nigeria and the Nigerian people. Only the votes they cast will determine who becomes what. It's not in our hands, it's in the hands of citizens. This is what the law requires of us. We cherish our institutional independence and the integrity of the Commission, and with the enthusiasm of Nigerians, the goodwill of stakeholders and partners, and the commitment of the Commission, we believe that the 2023 general election will be among the best conducted in Nigeria. The only thing I need to add is to say thank you, Alex, and thank you, Chatham House.
All lies is all propaganda, all attempts to try and make it look like it's not true.
There it is.
We do not.
Okay.
We do not
I'm going
trust.
to
You cannot trust
open a
anything
bit
that's been said
the
there.
conversation
That's what I would say
because
to you.
the Q&A is so
You cannot
important,
trust it.
and,
But let's
there's a
listen
stream
to
of questions
the
on
excuses
this
they will come
laptop.
up with. Let's listen.
But we're going to go around the room first of all here, and I'll take questions in threes. It's good. I think today we may have more opportunity to have more questions asked. So I'm going to move in blocks. So lady there first of all. The sister that's behind you, first of all. Yeah, but we'll come to you also. Please go ahead. Do tell us who you are and a short question, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lyle, and I'm a concerned citizen. So I've got a couple of questions, but I think you touched on some of it. One of it is, you said that we did try to pass a policy to see if people in diaspora can vote, but it didn't go through. Would you tell us why you think that happened and what we can do for upcoming election? And secondly, the election is just in a few weeks' time, sometime in February. But then a lot of people still haven't gotten their voters, their PVC, and we see videos every day of maybe Inec officials not being biased in giving out the voters card. Is there a way? It could be in future, because I don't know what we can do in this short time to ensure that people get their PVC early enough before, and considering a lot of people are registered maybe where they want to vote and they can't have their PVC unless they travel to maybe their home country. Home state, sorry, I apologize for that. Yeah, is there a way we can make that easy for them? And lastly, sorry, just one more.
We'll never get other questions, please, because I know the lady in front of you. I'm going to come back to you, but you're clearly both together. So, no, the gentleman there, we will come back to you. Yes, you, sir. Yeah, just there. I want to make sure we have diversity of questioning also. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Prof. My name is Isaac Taiwo, one of the Youth Foundation founder. My question is, you've said a lot about what you're ensuring to do to make sure 2023 election is a success, especially for we the citizen, the grassroots. I believe that the greatest legacy that President Muhammad Buhari wants to leave for Nigerians is to make sure he leads a credible and a free and fair election. So my question will be, what assurance will you give every citizen as a success that especially achieved on that very day, 25th of February 2023? Thank you.
Right. I'm going to read one out that's come in. We'll be coming back, don't worry. And we'll definitely overrun until about 1:15, so we've got time. We have here a question from Tarila Abede, who's from the Conflict Research Network of West Africa, saying, our research shows that despite the gains in Nigerian security forces, communities across Nigeria are experiencing different forms of violent conflicts and terrorism, and armed groups continue to occupy communities, leading to displacement of civilian population and communities. Will INEC conduct elections in communities where there are active terrorist groups, especially in the northeast and northwest? If so, how will it guarantee the credibility of elections conducted in these communities? And if not, how will INEC ensure displaced communities are not disenfranchised? So that's the additional question. So, Prof, I ask you to respond to those, and then we come for another round.
Okay.
Please.
Okay.
Yeah. You can sit if you want, or stand, it's as you wish.
You know, I have been a teacher all my life.
You better stand then. Stand.
We conduct our business standing, so. Okay, let me start with the last question. I think it was a virtual from a virtual participant on insecurity. Will INEC conduct elections in areas with active terrorist or active terrorism? If so, how do you guarantee the credibility of the election? If not, how do you disenfranchise citizens? So head or tail, you have to find a solution. The truth is that in areas of insecurity and people are displaced, you can't say you are going to conduct elections in areas of displacement because the citizens are displaced. But consistently since 2015, the Commission has had a policy and framework for voting by internally displaced persons. If they are organized in camps, in internally displaced persons camps, we can recreate the polling units and enable them vote. It was done in 2015, we did it in 2019, and only recently we convened stakeholders meeting to validate the revised framework and policy for voting by internally displaced persons. The difficulty we face is with those who are not living in displaced people's camps, but they are living with relations in safer communities. It becomes really very difficult to reach out and organize elections for them. We have over 2 million persons in displaced camps in Nigeria across a number of states, and we'll organize elections for them the same way as we did in 2015, 2019, and we'll do so in 2023, provided that in camps that are organized and we can reach out and recreate those polling units to enable them vote. Legal concerned citizen. Why did the effort to ensure diaspora voting fell through? Is there anything that can be done? It was really wonderful. I had a series of engagements with Nigerians in diaspora, both coming from the Americas and from Europe. Particularly there is one in the UK that has been very, very active and very vibrant. And they will attest to the fact that I maintain an open policy for them. We had a series of meetings and we are all excited. At a point we even started collaborating with the Nigeria in Diaspora Agency, headed by, I think, Mr. Abike, and we had a series of engagements. And the proposal went to the National Assembly, but at the National Assembly, the proposed proposition was defeated. So the position of law remains that unless you are a resident in Nigeria, you cannot register and you cannot vote. But I'm absolutely convinced that it's only a matter of time when this will be achieved. Voting by those in the diaspora, as far as we are concerned, should be a settled issue. And if you ask me whether I support it or not, I will tell you that you are preaching to the converted. But the Commission doesn't have the power to make it happen. The enabling law will have to be provided for it to happen. Not just because of the remittances, because I've had people talk about the remittance by Nigerians in the diaspora, and therefore they should be given the right to vote. I think it's because they are citizens, and citizens must enjoy rights. It's not about means. Otherwise, the richest person in a country will probably have 2 votes, but he has only one. He has only 1 vote. So it's a matter of right. It's not a matter of the contribution that they make. But of course, the nation appreciates the contribution.
Here the excuses, though. Are you listening to his excuses? Oh yes, you have. Yeah, I support it. I support it. That is why the Constitution itself, the fact that the Constitution is not including this, shows that there is no willingness to change. It won't be changed. They will never let it change. That is why we have to go for self-determination.
So much of the cards that are collected are actually from recent registration. So what we need to do after the election is to sit down with stakeholders and look at this matter thoroughly. Are these cards actually at the end of the day collectible, or we'll just keep carrying them forward with every election and they are not collected? But the historical cards are not collected as many as the more recent registrations. Isaac, assurance to every citizen that there will be free and fair election. Election is a multi-stakeholder activity. Inec has been giving you this assurance. I think we have demonstrated this, particularly in some of the more recent elections. And that is what we are going to carry forward to.
Just to interject here a little bit, those of you watching, thank you very much for watching. Please don't forget to hit the like button. Leave your comments, please, and help us share the broadcast, because the more you share it, the more it will reach more people. Because what we're trying to do is to really reach as many people as possible, to give us the to help the algorithm. Because the discussions that we're having here are seldom had on other platforms. We are trying to enlighten people. Many of you know that on this platform, I was perhaps if not the first, to really discuss on a wide scale, on a large scale, the Constitution of Nigeria. I have a CitizenAY Constitutional Awareness Action Group in which we discussed at length, section line by line, the Nigerian Constitution to enlighten the citizens of their rights. Well, we now know that that Constitution is fraudulent, and of course it can't be relied upon. And the next course of action is for us to demand a referendum, for us to be able to exercise our right to self-determination. So please help us subscribe to CitizenAY on YouTube. Please, your help is very much needed to reach more people, to engage many of our people on ground at home and abroad, to be able to speak up and collectively work towards achieving self-determination for Yoruba people, for Biafrans, for Middle Beltons, even for the Hauses. So please, 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 let's hear your comments. Please give us a like, a comment, share, and subscribe to CitizenAY on YouTube. Thank you very much. Thank you.
The general election. So as far as the Electoral Commission is concerned, that one is an old area. The votes cast by citizens should determine who becomes whatever in our country and in our democracy. I think I answered the question from Kabila. Thank you.
Let's get more questions. So the gentleman there, no, the gentleman in front of you. We still have time. Go ahead, yes.
Thank you so much, Dr. Alex Wines. Thank you so much, my professor. Well done. Good speech. I understood what you said, everything. I hope Nigeria will get a good election, inshallah. My position is very simple. I'm Dr. Isiaku Al-Mustafa, lecturer, business management, Global Banking School, London, and Belmont University, an independent port consultant to Nigerian government. Nigeria spent a lot of money in every cycle of elections over the years. And in your lecture, you made mention of the lessons, whereby we spend a lot of money, funding is key issues, and release of funds is key issues, and Nigeria statistically is very poor economic-wise. We know everything. And do you think it is a good recommendation for the next government to make election like a 7 years event, whereby instead of having 4-year term of presidency in the government, you have a 7-year term, which ex-President Jonathan advocated for, so that this will reduce the tensions over the years in politics, and as well the money spent on the economy, money that's supposed to be churned out to education and health. Do you think it's feasible based on the experiences? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right at the back there, question. Yeah.
No, for me,
yes,
we need to dismantle the whole thing.
I know who
That's
you
what
are.
I think.
I'm just
Sorry.
trying to say I don't know who you are. Yeah, please introduce yourself.
Thank you very much. My name is Lena Coney Hoffman. I'm an associate fellow with the Africa program here at Chatham House, and I lead the research on social norms and accountable governance. So in July of 2022, we released our latest results and findings from our report and work that we've been doing in Nigeria on vote selling behavior and democratic dissatisfaction. It's available on our webpage. And one of the findings that we had was around ballot secrecy. So that's my question to you. A lot of vote buying and vote selling transactions have to do with the level of ballot secrecy. So how is Inec going to improve and guarantee ballot secrecy in the upcoming elections to allow perhaps voters to renege on these vote selling and vote buying transactions? That's an important aspect of that transaction and the expectations of that transaction. So to what extent is INEC guaranteeing ballot secrecy and improvements in that regard in the upcoming elections? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. one more coming in here, please. I will be this side of the room, don't worry, we still have time. Ode Friday from the Accountability Lab in Abuja is asking, I'll be glad to hear from the Prof on asset declaration on political aspirant. Very few have put this out. Section 85 to 90 talk about campaign fines being declared, but no public evidence of this. Thank you. Over to you.
I always find it easier to start with the last question because I didn't have enough time to write it down, so it's fresh in my memory. I can't miss it. On asset declaration, I think this is a constitutional matter. Asset declaration for all public officers, and there is a procedure and there is an agency responsible for asset declaration. It's not necessarily tied to election. You know, the Constitution is also very clear on conditions for contesting an election. An asset declaration is not part of it, but all public office holders must declare their assets as a matter of constitutional responsibility. I hope that answers his question. Now, later you talked about ballot secrecy. Yes, in Nigeria, the law provides for open, secret ballot. In other words, there has to be a ballot box in the open, but the choice made by citizens must be in secret. And that's why the Commission provides the voting cubicles, and then there is a ballot box in the open. Once a citizen makes his or her choice, the ballot paper is dropped in the open, in the ballot box. Now, you tied this to the question of vote buying on election day. Yes, I mentioned this in my presentation. By the time you get the lecture, you will see I said much more actually than what I could have said or could not have said during my presentation on the issue of vote buying. So, it happens like this. In the polling unit, you have the vote buyers. Sometimes they have legitimate reason to be at the polling units because they may be agents of political parties. The law allows for polling agents. And so when people vote, they have a tendency to show the party that they have voted for to the person who is facilitating the buying of the votes before the ballot paper is dropped into the ballot box. What did we do? In 2018, I think, we decided in one of the elections to change the configuration of the polling units by bringing the ballot papers closer to the ballot boxes. The voting cubicles. The ballot box close to the voting cubicles in order to curtail the distance that they travel between the time they make their choice in the cubicles to the point they drop the ballot papers in the ballot boxes. We thought we were making some progress. But another election followed a few months later, that year, off-season governorship elections. Then we learned that they were using their smartphones. So instead of exposing the ballot paper, all you need to do is to go in with a smartphone, snap the marked ballot paper, and then go and do whatever you wish to do later. We then banned the use of not only mobile phones, but even photographic devices in the voting cubicles. Mixed results. In many parts of the country, we don't have built-up polling units. We have them in what we call open spaces. What we provide on election day is the tents or canopies for these polling units. But we'll continue to look into that. But it's not just a Nigerian problem. I also noted that it's a global problem. Very interesting. I went to the United States for a midterm election some time back, and then you see at polling units posters saying that mobile phones and cameras are not allowed into the polling units. So it assumes that dimension as well. But we also went ahead to introduce the folding of the ballot papers, and we trained our presiding officers. When a voter comes, as soon as the person is accredited as given the ballot paper, there is a way it is folded. And when they make their mark in the voting cubicles, we encourage them to fold the ballot papers in the same way before they drop into the ballot boxes. But what is all this talk about vote buying? It is also for us an indication of the progress that we are making in our democracy, because it is becoming increasingly clear to everyone that the votes are counting, and that you can't write voter long before the election and expect the person is going to vote for you. So follow the person to the polling unit, and even the polling unit, make sure that the person has voted for you. At the end of the day, and I've said this consistently, is enforcement of the laws. There are laws, but the laws are not enforced. So let me say the opportunity to renew our appeal as a commission for the National Assembly in Nigeria to speed pass the Electoral Offences Commission bill, so that all violators of our laws shall be penalized accordingly. And then that responsibility is left to Inec by law. But look at the constraints. Inec cannot make arrests. We have no capacity to make arrests. Inec cannot successfully conduct an investigation that will provide the evidence that will lead to successful prosecution. But we are saddled with the responsibility of prosecuting electoral offenders. So several committees, 2009, the Waste Committee recommended the establishment of the Electoral Offences Commission. 2011, the Labour Committee did so. 2017, the Ken Namani Committee did so. But the good thing is that the Senate in Nigeria has passed the bill, but it's awaiting concurrence by the House of Representatives. So we hope that the National Assembly will do the needful by passing that law, and that law should be assented to speedily before the end of the lifespan of the present Assembly. Dr. Isiaku Mustafa, this is the easiest question I can answer. As far as Inec is concerned, we conduct elections on the basis of what the law says we should do. It is not our business to do advocacy for a session of labor. But whatever the law provides, it's what you do. Thank you very much.
Okay, we just have time for one more round, but we let me start with the gentleman here. I'm going this side and we'll move across. So you, sir.
Professor, welcome to London. John Cookson from Rise News. The BVAS system has been used before, but not without teething problems, especially in the recent governorship election. What guarantees can you give to the Nigerian people that all the problems have been ironed out and it's going to work properly? It's counting 90 million votes.
Given the amount of hands, what I'm going to do is ask a few more people to ask questions, but choose the ones that you, yeah. So I'm going to put the pressure on you. So the lady there, yeah, microphone going there. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. My name is Aisha Agboluaje. I'm a final year student at the Royal Holloway University of London, and this is the first year that I am legally old enough to fulfill my obligation to vote. But I'm here in London, so I can't vote. However, my friends and family that are in Nigeria have spent 2-3 days going to the Inec office or going to the local government to get their voters' cards. And you know, Gen Z, we do not like stress. How are you using the technology, integrating technology to bring voting to the people? We have NIN that we have gone to register for with our facial recognition, with our fingerprints. How are you, using the technology to take voting to the people so that it can increase political participation? Also, in the terms of female participation in politics, I know it's not INEC's problem directly, but don't you think Nigeria would benefit from a quota system like other countries in Africa like Senegal and Rwanda have? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Gentleman over there, we're moving along this way. Yes, you, sir. Yeah, in the middle row just there. My apologies, we just don't have enough time for everybody.
Thank you very much, Professor. I'm going to make it quick. My name is Yomi Maja. I'm General Secretary, Allied International Club. There has been rumor out there that some persons or groups are trying to actually get you removed from the office. So do you have anything to say to that? And the second thing is that in terms of logistics, some rural areas actually experienced some delays in view of the fact that we only have about 5-6 hours voting in the country. I hope you can actually tell us that there's going to be an improvement in terms of distribution. Quickly, lastly, thousands of people.
Come on, no, enough. Please. And the lady at the back there, yes, madam, you. Yeah.
Thank you very much. My name is Ndidi Njoku. I'm the principal for Markets for Development and the chair of a diaspora organisation called the African Foundation for Development, which we're actually celebrating 30 years, and we've worked a lot with the Nigerian government and the Diaspora Commission. So thank you, Professor, for your presentation. It's absolutely great. Last year, Chatham House hosted the Speaker of the House of Representatives from the Federal Republic of Nigeria. When he talked about diaspora voting, he said that the House had wide theoretical support to bring diaspora voting into fruition, but he mentioned that the issue was a practical issue. So my question is, what is the Commission doing to examine innovative and practical ways in which diaspora voting could be realised? Thank you.
Okay, and finally the gentleman at the door there. Yeah, you sir.
Thank you very much, Professor Yakubu. I'm Professor Christy Mafidon. I chair the Excellence in Education Program. We collaborate with a few Nigerian universities. I just want to clarify from you whether the continued use of senior academics as returning officers, instead of the new suggestion that they may need to use local government officers due to security and safety, is a rumor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And online, there's been quite a few questions coming in. If there's a second round for presidential elections, how prepared are you? That's the question that a lot of people are asking. So we're not asking for you to answer all the questions that you've just received, but I would invite you to kind of sum up, respond to those that you feel appropriate, and then we'll draw to a close. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alex. I will take your advice seriously, since you have given me the option of choosing which questions to answer, which questions I'm not going to answer. I'm going to answer all questions as best I can. So we start with John, Arise News. You talked about the teething problems with the beavers and what guarantees that the machines will work. Yes, we had issues in Anambra and the FCT when we deployed the beavers in November last year and in November 2021 and February 2022. We went back to the drawing board. We have found the solution to the problem. That's why in subsequent elections in Ekiti and Osun, you didn't see those glitches. But I'm not going to say more about what we discovered and what action we have done. Because if you are running web resources, you have to be mindful what you say, particularly at a forum like this, because the bad guys may also be listening. But we are confident. And this is what we have done, and we completed this early this week. We have the machines for the 2023 general elections, but we didn't want to take the chances. Each and every machine has been tested and confirmed that the machine is functional. So actually for the last 2 weeks or so, our officials were in all the states of the Federation testing those machines. And the functionality of the machines is simply very encouraging. So we'll not take chances. The second thing we are going to do, and pretty soon, is to conduct mock accreditation exercise nationwide ahead of the election. We won't wait until the main election comes. We'll test the integrity of these machines with real live voters in selected polling units across the country. We did so in Oshun. It was fantastic. We are going to do so nationwide, and increasingly, people are becoming even more excited about the deployment of this technology. So we are really happy. And in terms of the numbers of the BVAS machines, we always make provision for additional numbers of machines in case of malfunction or glitches. And there is always a backup. We have what we call the RA technical support that will fix the machines in the unlikely event of any glitches. And where it needs to be fixed is fixed, but where it fails to function completely in a polling unit, and from previous experience there are isolated polling units, the law has a remedy that the Commission should immobilize and conduct elections in the affected polling units within 24 hours. So we are really comfortable where we are on the machines, but we'll continue to do whatever we need to do to protect its integrity and to continue to test it for deployment during elections. Aisha, you asked two questions. The first one is friends spending quite a number of days to collect their PVCs. And you talked about the possibility of linkage between NIN and PVCs. NIN is our national identification number. These are numbers issued by a completely different agency. But there is a committee working on the harmonization of various sources of data from the national identification number, the immigration service with passports, the central bank with bank verification numbers, the electoral commission has the largest database of citizens in the country, the Federal Road Safety Corps that issues driver's licenses nationwide. We hope by the time we achieve that harmonization, then obviously it will be easier. At that point, we hope it will also be possible for citizens to vote wherever they are, instead of the polling units where they register, because that is what the law provides for now. You have to vote, you can only vote in the polling units where you register. But he said some people are spending 2 to 3 days trying to collect their PVCs. So we hope that with the extension of time we granted, this will ease out. I'm really happy with the numbers coming from the states. In fact, it was reported yesterday by one of our resident electoral commissioners. He complained that in one of the states, people are not coming out to collect their PVCs. We'll continue to encourage citizens to collect their PVCs. We'll see what happens after the ward level collection, because after ward level collection, we're coming back to the local government areas for another week until the 29th of January. My appeal is that citizens who have registered should please be patient and collect their cards. But I'm also saying that for those who applied for transfer and relocation, they should go to the places where they applied for the transfer, but they should go to the places where they wish to vote right now, because that is where the card is. There is a policy in Nigeria that, yes, you only vote where you are registered, but if you are registered in point A but you want to vote in point B, then you have to transfer your registration to that point. So some people go and apply for transfer. You can apply for transfer from any part of the country. You can even commence the process online. But when the card is ready, we're not going to drop it at the point of application for transfer, but at the point of collection of the card. So it's important to keep telling the young Nigerians that they should also know that if they have applied for transfer, this is the procedure for them to get their cards. Can Nigeria benefit from the quota system? That's the other question you ask. My own preference is for affirmative action. Affirmative action for any segment of the society that is underrepresented. And we saw this in the Kenyan Constitution, and it's very progressive. But right now, participation of women, particularly in elective offices, is at the mercy of political parties. and we haven't made much progress in that respect. And you can't contest an election in Nigeria unless you are sponsored by a political party. So we look for members of the National Assembly doing some affirmative action. You can't leave a large segment of your population not participating in government in that manner, particularly at the level of elective representation. So we look for, again, the best example for me, as I said, is Kenya. They deliberately introduced what you call quota, but actually it's affirmative action. So we look forward to that kind of affirmative action in our country as well. Yomi, you said persons or groups plotting to us the chairman of Inec. I'm here, and I'm still the chairman of Inec. That answers your question. Then you said Nigeria has 5 to 6 hours of voting. Basically, you're asking what can we do? Yes, in theory, it's actually the 6 hours of voting, 8:30 to 2:30. But actually, it's flexible. They said every voter who is on the queue before 2:30 will vote, even if voting goes into the night. So in other words, whoever is on the queue on election day before 2:30 will be able to vote. And remember, we also cut the process short. Instead of accreditation, and then you go home and come back at an appointed hour to vote, it's now a simultaneous process. Citizens accredit and they vote, made possible by the deployment of technology. So it's not like 5 or 6 hard and fast fixed hours. It's 6 flexible hours, because whoever is on the queue will vote no matter how long it takes. Chair, Diaspora Organization. You said that someone said that there's a practical issue rather than a legislative issue. That's the impression I get. They said that there's a practical issue that should be addressed, and you tie this to the issue of funding and logistics for election and whatever.
So it was just whether the commission are looking at innovative solutions to bring about the aspiration.
Okay, the best thing for us, before we even talk about innovative solutions, is for the law to be amended to enable us proceed. For as long as the law is not amended, we cannot even begin to innovate. Yes, as I said, we have a policy on the diaspora voting, but as long as the law remains what it is, it's going to be an obstacle to diaspora voting. So the law first. Once the electoral legal framework is clear, then we can debate, we can discuss how are we going to start, where are we going to start, what will be the modalities and what have you. But the law first before we talk about what we do. Then, Prof, you talked about the continuous use of senior academics as returning and collection officers. And you propose that we should perhaps use what, local government workers? Am I getting you right?
Sorry, Prof.
Yeah, he said it's been discussed that they may use local government workers instead of academic institutions.
Who may use local government workers?
Your
The commission? No.
Your commission.
No, please discount that it must be a rumor. The procedure is very clear. We can't use local government workers. We're not conducting local government elections. Local government elections are conducted by state electoral commissions. There is a procedure, there is a policy, the policy hasn't changed, and that is what will apply for the 2023 general elections. Then
Presidential runoff.
Yeah, presidential runoff. If the commission prepared for a presidential runoff. The truth of the matter is that with every general election, the commission prepares, at least for some time now in the last 3 electoral cycles, we also prepare for that possibility. Reason is, until the Constitution was amended, there was only 1 week for presidential runoff in case it happens. And with the number of registered voters we have, it is almost impossible to print the ballot papers required and the result sheets and deliver them to locations and conduct the elections as required. So with every election for the last 3 electoral cycles, we also make provision for the possibility of presidential runoff in case it happens. If it happens, then we'll have no issues. And this year is no exception. Fortunately, the time frame has also been extended. The fourth alteration to the Constitution has extended it by 2 more weeks, so it's now 3 weeks instead of 1 week we had before. But we always prepare for that possibility. In case it happens, we don't know. It is in the hands of the voters, but if it happens, we will not be caught napping. Thank you.
Thank you. We already borrowed a lot more time, so we're 20 minutes over. My apologies, but I think it was worth having a deeper conversation. This was a technocratic presentation, so this is not the electioneering that we've had yesterday in December, and we will have tomorrow. As you know, the NNPP candidate is speaking here same time, but we won't overrun as long as today, so that each of the candidates was treated in the same manner. I don't have anything more to do but to say 2 things. One is that the full speech presentation will be both on the Inec and Chatham House website shortly. And to thank Professor Yakubu for coming to Chatham House and spending time here today and answering all our questions. Thank you very much, Prof, and good luck for the election.
So there we have it. So there we have the speech by Professor Mahmood Yakubu, Chairman, Inec Chairman Mahmood Yakubu. Now, please, one of the things I want us to really look at, and all of us collectively, is to really to look at this and really be dispassionate and very, very clear about what it is that is going on. Let me see. So, it is obvious and evident that this issue of the legitimacy of INEC is something that they are trying very hard to brush over, to sweep under the carpet. But I'm here to remind you all, as many of you will know, CitizenAY, that I speak in detail on this issue of the illegitimacy of INEC. And INEC remains illegitimate no matter how much, no matter how often they will try to prove otherwise. Here's one simple thing that I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you this now. And I'll come back and look at the second part of Peter Obi's question later on. Please don't forget to subscribe to CitizenAY on YouTube. We need your support to grow the platform. Now, I want to just quickly show you something. There is an INEC. Let me see something about INEC here. Let me see. There is a section where they talk about INEC, and I want to show you in the schedule. Here we go. If you look, this is inside the fraudulent 1999 Constitution. This is within the fraudulent 1999 Constitution. Let me just go to the top again. I'll show you. So you know, I don't want you to think I'm pulling your leg or anything. This is inside that fraudulent Constitution, and as you know, as I stated earlier on, it is actually Promulgation Decree number 24 of 1999. It is Promulgation Decree number 24 of 1999, which means that it wasn't a document that we the people signed up to. This was an imposition by the military, very much like Governor General Gowon signed off and said, okay, no, Bakassi, if you give us, if you starve the Biafrans of supplies, we will give you Bakassi. The same thing applies here. Without consultation of the local people, they decided to make that decision, and you know that shows that the military in that case intervened via Yakubu Gowon, and in the case again of the Nigerian Constitution, the military again imposed under the auspices of this fraudulent, sorry. Oh gosh, sorry about that. I think, oh God, no, sorry about that. I don't want you to see that. Oh shoot, that's not what I wanted to show you. Nope, forget that a minute. Okay, let's go back. I'll go back. I'll bring it back. I think I need to find it. I can't find it just now. Okay, but anyway, so I've showed you I'll bring it back. In fact, I'll bring it back. Let me endeavor to bring it back. It's easier to do that, isn't it? Let me see if I can bring it back. 1 second, because it's better when we're talking about it to actually have it on display. That makes better sense, I think. Pictures. Okay, here we go. So there we are. Yeah. So what you will see there is the General Abdul Salam is what I wanted you to see. So in both cases, Governor General Yakubu go on, and then of course now Abdul Salam. In both cases, they have actually done something which is imposing, without the consent of the people, imposing a fraudulent document on us. And those are the kind of things that I want us to really, understand, so that because we begin to understand and see what was done. Because oftentimes many of us don't ask those questions, and we should. We really should ask that question. So you see now that just in the case of the Bakassi, where Gowon decided that he's going to actually cede the let me move it this way. He's going to cede Bakassi to Cameroon. But again, there's another issue with Cameroon. Did you know that Cameroon and Nigeria were one country up until 1913? They were one country, as carved up by the colonials. And that's why when we talk about that, we won Nigeria with all this stuff. You are trying to reform to what you're trying to hold on to the colonial ideas imposed on our ancestors. It's madness. So anyway, that's another story for another time. But so I'm showing you that the Constitution of Nigeria, Federal Republic of Nigeria, is it's a promulgation decree, again by General Abdul Salam Alhaji Abubakar. You can see that's the name. I'm trying to make sure you see that name loud and clear. So now let's go back to the bottom and to the top, and I want to show you the thing I wanted to show you. So there you can see that it's a promulgation decree. So we didn't agree to it with the people, and this is why, and this is the basis upon which Inec came into being. The basis upon which Inec came into being was under this fraudulent 1999 constitution, and that is why Inec can never be free nor fair, because they control Inec. That is the point that is being made here. So let me just pause that, and let's go back here now. So let's go and do this now. So I'm going to go back down, and I want to show you now that you see that the promulgation decree number 24 of 1999 is the basis upon which Inec came into being as we see it. So I'm going to show you, so that you now know that whatever Inec says is not something that we can trust or rely upon. So let me just show you. It'll come up in a minute. Here we go. So you see, Independent National Electoral Commission, and that was done without the say-so of us, the people. That is not, it is neither free nor fair. The people who run the whole thing are the Fulanis who impose this constitution on all of us. And we need a referendum. We need a referendum. Inec is not independent. Inec can never be independent. 20 million plus Yoruba, 20 million Southerners cannot vote, who are in diaspora cannot vote in elections. And yet they keep saying, oh, if it depends on, and they are not willing to make the changes. The constitution should already make sure that the people, all citizens, should be able to vote wherever they are in the planet. US do it, UK do it, Canada do it, Germany do it, France do it, all of those people do it. But they keep making excuses. Oh, we can't. And they know why. Because they know that they know that they cannot control or influence how we see them. So, and they know that will actually have an impact. And it would give the people more confidence to actually, hold them to account. So they are trying to deny that all of this it is unacceptable that you're telling us to believe in one Nigeria. But one Nigeria cannot provide me as a foreign as a diasporan, the opportunity to vote from wherever I am on the planet, and you're telling me to believe in one Nigeria. It's a fraud. It is a fraud. That is why we have to go for self-determination. And I urge you all, let's do that, please. Let us do that. Let us continue to go for that. I urge you to really, let's do that. It's very important. So I hope you can hear me. Oops, sorry about that. So once I complete, something's gone off. Can you hear me? You can hear me? Yes, you can. I think you can hear me. I just can't hear for a minute. I don't know what it is. So if it does go off, do beg your pardon. It may have just gone off for something. I'm not quite sure, but I'm trying to check that we've got all the sound in the right place. So can you hear me? I hope you can hear me. I cannot hear anything at this point in time, and I want to just check it that it's okay. But listen, if it does, we'll bring this to an end here. Let me just do a final check. Let me do one final check to make sure that this is in correct sense. I want to make sure. Oh, sorry about that. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened there. Sorry. I know what's happened. I know what's happened. Sorry about that.
Okay, the best thing for us, before we even talk about innovative solutions, is for the law to be amended.
So we're trying to get everything back in order.
For as long as the law is not amended, we cannot even begin to innovate.
So let's just see if we got everything under control. Sorry about that. So we're gonna just shut everything down. So we are just bringing everything down. So hopefully it will make sense. 1 second. I don't quite know what happened, but thank you for watching. I will end it here. I'll come back. Something has happened. There's been some sort of a problem here. So I'm hoping it works. 1 second. I'll be back. I'll end it here and I'll come back and we can do that later. But thank you for watching CitizenAY, the platform where we speak truth to power. So that was the cover of the broadcast earlier